Mind me if I'm a little nervous. I normally don't talk in front of a lot of people. I've been asked to say a few words, and since I'm a man, a few words. Maybe this will work out. The oil spill is really raw for a lot of us down here, and it still is. It hit hard, and it hit real hard, and it hurt us really bad. I mean, physically, emotionally, it hurt our families, and it just hurt our way of life. So the first time I saw the oil, when I came in, I was so aggravated, I was so mad, I couldn't sleep that night. And I didn't know what to do. I was 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I was tossing, I was turning. So I decided that I would write down what I felt and what I saw that day. And so I've never written anything in my life. I have a high school education. I went to work straight out of high school, and I've been on those waters all my life for the last 30 years. This is the first thing I ever wrote, and y'all are going to be the first people to ever hear me read it. I haven't read this since I wrote it. Now, I left it on the desk. My wife picked it up, and she sent it into cyberspace, and it went viral. And now everybody's telling me, oh, you should be a writer and all this. I said, no, I don't want to be a writer. I just wrote this. I wrote my feelings down. So hopefully I can get through this, because it's very emotional for me. The boat ride out from Lafitte, Louisiana, Sunday, May 23rd, 2010, to our fishing grounds was not unlike any other I have taken in my life as a commercial fisherman from this area. I've made the trip thousands of times in my 35-plus years shrimping and crabbing. A warm breeze in my face. It was a typical Louisiana summer day. 3 people were with me: my wife, Tracy, Ian Wren, who is a San Francisco baykeeper. He had come down, and our grandson, Scotty. I was soon to find out how untypical this day would become for me. Not unlike a death in the family, this was going to be a very bad day for me. Y'all have to excuse me. As we neared Barataria Bay, the smell of crude oil in the air was getting thicker and thicker. An event that always brought joy to me all my life, the approach of the fishing grounds, was slowly turning into a nightmare. As we entered Grand Lake, the name we fishermen call Barataria Bay, I started to see a weird glassy look to the water, and soon it became evident to me there was oil sheen as far as I could see. We soon were running past patches of red oil floating on top of the water. As we headed further south, we saw at least a dozen boats in the distance which appeared to be shrimping. We soon realized that shrimping was not what they were doing at all, but instead they were towing oil boom in a desperate attempt to corral oil that was pouring into our fishing grounds. We stopped to talk to one of the fishermen towing a boom, a young fisherman from our area, Lafitte. What he told me floored me. He said, "What you're seeing in the lake, the oil, is but a drop in the bucket of what is to come." He had just come out of the Gulf of Mexico, and he said it was unbelievable. The oil runs for miles and miles and miles, as far as you can see, and was headed for shore into our fishing ground. I thought what I had already seen in the lake was enough to last me a lifetime. We talked a little longer, gave the fishermen some protective respirators, and we were soon on our way. As we left the small fleet of boats working feverishly trying to corral the oil, I became overwhelmed with what I just saw. I'm not real emotional, and can consider myself a pretty tough guy. You have to be to survive as a fisherman. As I left that scene, tears flowed down my face, and I cried, something I have not done in a long time, but would do so several more times that day. I tried not to let my grandson, Scotty, see me crying. I didn't think he would understand I was crying for his stolen future. Excuse me. None of this will ever be the same for decades to come, I thought. The damage is going to be immense. I do not think our lives here in South Louisiana will ever be the same. He is too young to understand. He has an intense love for our way of life. He wants to be a fisherman and a fishing guy when he gets older. It is what he is. It is in his soul. It is in his culture. How can I tell him that this may never come to pass, now that everything he loves in the outdoors may soon be destroyed by this massive oil spill? How do we tell this to a generation of young people in South Louisiana who live and breathe this bayou life that we love and they love so much could soon be gone? How do we tell them? All this raced through my mind, and I wept. We continued further south towards Grand Terre Island. We approached Bird Island. The name is Queen Bess Island, but we call it Bird Island because it is always full of birds. It is a rookery, a nesting island for thousands of birds, pelicans, terns, gulls, etc. As we got closer, we saw that protective boom had been placed around about 2/3 of the island. It was obvious to me that oil had gone under the boom and was fouling the shore and had undoubtedly oiled some birds. My God. We would see this scene again at Cat Island and other unnamed islands that day. We continued on to the east past Cooper Bell Pass and more shrimp boats trying to contain some of the oil on the surface. We arrived at Full Bayou Pass to see more boats working on the same thing. We beached the boat and decided to look at the beach between the passes. The scene was one of horror to me. There was thick red oil on the entire stretch of beach, with oil continuing to wash ashore. The water looked to be infused with red oil, with billions of what appeared to be red pebbles of oil washing up on the beach with every wave. The red oil pebbles at the high tide mark on the beach were melting into pools of red goo in the hot Louisiana sun. The damage was overwhelming. There was nobody there to clean it up. It would take an army to clean it up. Like so much of coastal Louisiana, it was accessible only by boat. Will it ever be cleaned up? I don't know. Tears again. We soon left that beach and started to head home. We took a little different route home, staying a little further east to the east side of Barataria Bay. As we approached the northern end of the bay, we ran into another raft of oil that appeared to be covering many square miles. It was only a mile from the interior bayous on the north side of Barataria Bay. My God, no boats were towing boom in this area. I do not think anyone even knew it was there. A little bit further north, we saw some shrimp boats with boom on anchor, waiting to try to protect Bayou St. Denis from the oil. I alerted them of the approaching oil. I hoped they were able to control it before it reached the bayou. We left them and started to head in. My heart never felt so heavy as that ride in. I thought to myself, this is the most I've cried since I was a baby. In fact, I'm sure it was. This will be a summer of tears for a lot of us in South Louisiana. Thank you.